Good evening, Commissioners. Commissioner Miller,
Here.
Commissioner Reed is excused. Commissioner R. Curry,
Non-stop from San Jose here.
all right. Commissioner Maya,
Here.
Commissioner Grabman will be coming later this evening, and Vice Chair Glazier
Here.
and Chair Houghton is excused this evening. We have a quorum.
Director Haster, are there any changes to the agenda at this time? Vice Chair Glazer, no changes to the agenda. In that case, on Friday, April 12th, 2024, at 5 p.m., the Airport Commission Secretary duly posted this agenda on the bulletin board at the Airport Administration. At this time, do we have any speaker request forms for anything other than the hangars? Just one last call. Mo, did you receive any? All right, seeing as there is none. I will say one thing while we have this open for 1 second. We do have a lot of speaker request forms this evening, and when we get to that section of the agenda, I would just ask that everyone be courteous to everyone else and please stick to your allotted time spots because we do want to hear everyone's opinion tonight. So thank you for being here, but we do want to be courteous to everybody in the room. All right, moving along to item 4, liaison reports. We have 2 councilmen with us tonight. Councilman Friedman.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Eric Friedman, Santa Barbara City Council Airport Commission Liaison. Just briefly, tomorrow the city releases its budget for the upcoming fiscal year, and the news isn't the greatest. We have a projected $7 million deficit. It could be higher, but we'll see what we can do about it. And the other aspect, so we're going to start going to our budget hearings over the course of May. And this is the second year of a 2-year budget. And then the other thing is our new city administrator, Kelly McAdoo, is starting on approximately May 20th. So we'll have our new city administrator here. She has been down a number of times and was here last week for the state of the city chamber addresses for Carpinteria, Santa Barbara, and Goleta. So we're looking forward to having her come in right when we're tackling that budget. So that's all I have just in general terms, so thanks.
Thank you very much. And here in place of Councilman Carriaco, Councilman Richards.
Hello, everyone. Good to be here with you tonight. I'm Kyle Richards. I'm a Goleta City Council member, and I'm stepping in for James Carriaco, who's our normal liaison to the Airport Commission. I have a couple things. First of all, I wanted to just announce that we'll be seeking volunteers. That's the city of Goleta will be seeking volunteers from the community to serve on a 7-member Santa Barbara Airport Noise Working Group. And the purpose of the group is to gain input from neighborhood representatives and other airport stakeholders on potential solutions to airport noise issues affecting our residents. The application deadline for that is May 16th at 5 p.m. So anyone in the Goleta area, I believe this also includes Santa Barbara and unincorporated areas of Isla Vista as well, but my main concern is Goleta, so just to put that out there. And then while I'm up here, I just mentioned that I'm also here interested in hearing about the General Western Aero hangars. And while I have the mic, I'll just mention that the city of Goleta is very interested in the history of the Goleta Valley and the area. You may know that we passed a historic resources ordinance in 2022, actually April of 2022, so just 2 years ago. And our goal is to preserve and educate our community about historic resources in the city of Goleta in particular. But as you know, that there's the aviation history of the Goleta Valley is closely connected to the aerospace industry of today in Goleta. It's a major industry in our area, aerospace and technology. So we are definitely interested in that, and we would hope that that the city and the commission and all parties will do what you can to repair, restore, and reuse any of the historical resources on your property. So, okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your comments and your report. At this time, I'd like to call on Director Haster to give his airport director's report.
Thank you, Ken. Vice Chair Glazer. Just really quickly, you do have some reports in your packet, and the one thing that brought attention to me was American Airlines passenger counts are down a little bit. So we researched that. That was actually due to a schedule reduction, and they do plan on getting back up to their normal schedule soon. So that is why that number is a little bit off. We did have, I'm sure you were all aware of the news of the spill that we had here on the airport with Goleta West Sanitary District. I just wanted to assure the commission and the members of the public that our staff is doing everything we can to work cooperatively with them to get the line back up and running, but also make sure that the lines that cross our airport property are maintained properly and we don't have a repeat of that incident. You may also have heard from the GA pilot community, hopefully not because we corrected it fairly quickly, but we had a large event in the area that drew a lot of airplanes to the airport. And we put out a notice saying that the FBO ramps were closed to GA single engine aircraft, and we don't want to rule out any specific type of aircraft. So we actually modified that NOTAM to say unscheduled transient aircraft require prior permission. So just wanted to put that out there that we are trying to be mindful that we are not trying to restrict the airport for any type or category of aircraft. I attended the Routes Americas conference, and that's one of those conferences where you meet with different airlines, and I'm happy to report we had several good meetings with airlines, but the takeaway from that is every airline out there, with the exception of one that is buying airplanes from Brazil, is suffering issues with delays on certification of aircraft, delays on deliveries of aircraft, and that will have an impact on a lot of airline flight schedules. Fortunately, the news for Santa Barbara was that they don't anticipate any, other than the American that we have already experienced, any reductions in our schedule at this time, but they did say that that is definitely subject to change depending on how everything works out with those deliveries. June 7th, we still have Delta Airlines starting up with the A220 to Salt Lake City and Atlanta. And I'm just happy to report that our staff has been working with their team to welcome them to the airport and get them all set up. And I don't anticipate any issues or delays with that. I'm not sure what was going on with the ILS today, but one of the other issues that we have is our airport approach lighting system has been out for a considerable amount of time. There is some traction with some of our locally based pilots working with AOPA and NBAA to try to get the FAA's attention on that lighting system. That is not an airport maintained lighting system. It's maintained by the FAA. And so hopefully that will gain traction and be resolved at some point. But it's been out for over 6 months altogether, but it's been a few years where it's actually been not all the way up to full capacity for the wattage of the lights that need to be in there. I'm happy to report that we did make a selection of John Feldhans to be our airport properties manager. So hopefully that will bring us some stability with our staffing to where we can now continue to move forward on projects like we will be discussing tonight, and being able to really be consistent with our tenants out there and have one face that they know and understand, and instead of a revolving door of different people that they've been dealing with. Councilmember Friedman mentioned the budget. We had hoped to be able to bring the budget to the commission earlier, but because of timing of it being released from the city, we can't do that yet. We will be providing a link once the budget is released to what is called the OpenGov tool. It's the transparency tool for the whole city for our budget. So prior to us bringing it to you, will have adequate time to actually drill through all of the different line items for the whole city or just the airport. So we will provide that link once the budget is released tomorrow. We did have a speaker that came in asking about hangar rates and reducing them because the debt service has been paid off. We haven't made any recommendations on that yet, and that will come up to the commission at some point. But we did have a meeting to look at the electrical charges that we charge for those hangars, the actual hangar rates, the debt service, as well as one of the other items that they put in the letter, which was the way that we collect the security deposits. And so we are moving forward doing an analysis of that. I just wanted to let you know that it hasn't been dropped, and we have a legal request in to analyze how we do our security deposits as well, to hopefully make some adjustments to based on that feedback that we received from those tenants. And last but not least, as Councilmember Richards mentioned, we are bringing the Airport Noise Working Group forward. I want to thank the City of Goleta for their participation and working to establish who the participants are going to be from the City of Goleta. As the councilman mentioned, we also do have representation from the City of Santa Barbara, the county, as well as other stakeholders, UCSB, et cetera. And so we are also reaching out to some airport stakeholders to get some representation from flight instruction, regular tenant of the airport, airline. So you'll probably be hearing more about the selection of that group, and I will report back. We were hopeful that maybe one of our commission members who is not here this evening might be able to participate, but we'll be bringing that back forward to the commission. And that's all I have for the director's report.
Thank you, Director Hastert. Commissioners, do you have any questions, or Levi?
One question. Congratulations, Mr. Feldhens, on this new position. I'm curious, does that now
Bruce,
leave
can
a
you
vacancy?
can you hit your microphone? There you go.
It is on. Does that leave now a vacancy as the operations supervisor that you'll be filling? He may be wondering that himself.
That does open up that position for operations supervisor, and we're looking at all of our staffing overall with this new budget coming out to see when and how we fill that position, or if we make some other changes. But yes, it does open up that position.
All right. Well, again, congratulations.
Levi?
Mr. Hastert, I want to thank you for addressing the concerns that were brought up at prior meetings and reporting back to us with that. I think just for the benefit of the large audience that we have tonight, I think it's important to recognize that while the commission and the staff don't often give feedback directly to the audience, particularly about items that aren't on the agenda, but even with items that are on the agenda, that things are happening behind the scenes, and Mr. Hastert is particularly responsive to public requests and to things that get brought up in the meeting that are on the agenda or not on the agenda. So I think as you make comments tonight, don't be discouraged by the fact that you may not get a particular specific response to issues that you may raise or comments that you may make, but rest assured that it is heard. So.
Couldn't agree more. Any other comments? All right. Any other speakers' request forms for anything regarding the director's report? No. All right. Let's move on to the consent calendar in that case. The Airport Commission has been requested to waive the reading and the approval of the minutes for the commission meeting of Wednesday, March 6th, 2024. And then we don't need a vote on that, correct, Mo? Okay. And then on the lease agreement at the same time, the lease agreement for Sky High Helicopters, LLC. We also don't need to read that into motion, correct? Okay. Do we need a report on that from Director Hastert?
So this is just the consent calendar, so it's all the items grouped together. So this is where we would hope that we would have an action by the commission.
Do an action first, or you have questions first by the commissioners? Any questions on the consent calendar?
I would make a motion then to approve the consent calendar as presented.
I'll
Can I get-
second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nope.
Any abstain? Passes unanimously, 4-0. All right. Then I'd like to call on Director Hastert again for the airline rate and charges for fiscal year 2025.
Thank you, Chair Glazer. So every year we reevaluate our airline rates and charges and do a reconciliation of the previous year. And to talk a little bit more about that process and where we have ended up with our recommended rates is Jonathan Abad. And so I'll ask him to give the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Hastert. Let's see here. Oops. What do I do?
I guess you have 3 minutes. Talk quick.
Okay. Good evening, Vice Chair and Glazer and Airport Commission, members of the public. My name's Jonathan Abad. I'm the airport's business manager, and I'm here tonight to present the fiscal 2025 airline rates and charges with a recommendation for the Airport Commission to approve the airline rates and charges for fiscal 2025. And we'll start off with the agenda. In the agenda, we'll start with introductions and some overview. the FY25 proposed rates. Then we'll go over some key capital project updates. And this table gives you an idea of how we calculate each airline rates and charges. And consistent with Santa Barbara's residual airline agreement, rates and charges are estimated in a budget to determine the cost requirement that the airline needs to cover. Then it's billed in advance throughout the whole fiscal year. For the whole fiscal year, we bill it in advance, and then at the end of that fiscal year, we reconcile it with the actual operating results. It's a federal policy that requires airports into rate-making process to determine this cost requirement that airlines need to cover through rates and charges paid to the airport. This cost requirement is determined by residual of the airport expenditure less revenues. Based on this residual calculation, less revenues or higher anticipated expenditure leads to higher cost requirements, which require higher rates and fees. And dramatic and historic reduction in airline operations and passengers due to the pandemic would have required us to dramatically raise our rates in the previous year's fiscal 21 and 22. However, the application of our federal relief funding that we received allowed us to offset these revenue shortfalls and keep the rates unchanged until this coming fiscal 25, when the last of the relief funding runs out for application to the rates. And fiscal 23 was another strong year with the 4 airlines, Alaskan, American, Southwest, and United. We ended calendar 23 with 1.28 million, another annual record. That's 48% higher than the previous record from the last fiscal year before the pandemic, fiscal 19. And in the last 10 months of the calendar year, actually, we saw, in December, last December, we saw the busiest December we've ever seen at 103,000 passenger for that month. And here's a chart of our annualized passenger counts over the years. And from this chart, you'll see the sharp increase just about when we hit COVID. And then around January 2022, that's when we surpassed that record, continuing on up until we hit that normal annual cyclical cycle, where it gets busy in the summer, kind of dips down after January. So it looks like we're back to the old cycle now. And compared to other airports in the region, Santa Barbara leads the fastest seat recovery since before the pandemic. Anticipated challenges. Airfield space constraint is one of our greatest challenges right now, and it's being addressed by our Southfield redevelopment, which I'll go over later, and terminal improvement. And until we complete the FBO redevelopments, our revenues from the FBOs is limited at this time. And there are more and more days that we're seeing the parking lots getting full. And so we are also addressing that in the second phase of the Southfield redevelopment. And we're working steadily to increase and maximize our revenue base to meet future costs of the terminal improvement and aging infrastructure repairs and upgrades. And off to the rates and charges. These are the new rates and charges that we're proposing for fiscal 25. For the terminal rates, we're proposing $121.65 per square foot. No change in the per turn fee. And we're slightly increasing the landing fee, proposing to $3.35 per 1,000 pounds of maximum gross landing weight. And for non-signatory, it's 25% more as per the agreement. And key drivers that's increasing the rate right now is biggest is salaries and benefits. It's the largest cost increase, driven by significant increases to retirement, medical insurance, labor union negotiated raises, and we had cost savings from deep cuts we made during the COVID pandemic, which we had to ramp back up to levels exceeding prior pandemic levels in order to meet the record operations that we're seeing lately. And all during very high inflationary times. And also just a reminder that, you know, our employments are 50% higher than the last fiscal year and before the pandemic. Here we have the costs showing that salaries and benefits are up about over $1 million, 10%. Supplies and services up also about 10%. Allocated costs up about 6%. The aircraft rescue and firefighting budget is slightly down as we review our current agreement with the fire department of the city. You'll see engineering is up mainly due to a position that's administratively shifted from the salaries and benefits to this line item. There's actually 3 engineering staff provided by the Public Works Department that we're paying off of this line item, transferring it over to the Public Works. And shuttle service costs slightly up, and the equipment costs up. Mostly that's due to some one-time budget items for the equipment. And here's our proposed rates compared to historically. And as you can see there, terminal rates were unchanged for a while. It was last changed actually from fiscal 21, and it remained unchanged for about 3 years until now with this 7.65% increase. Boarding bridge fee is unchanged, and the last change we had on that was also in fiscal 21 with a $3 increase. And the landing fee is proposed to increase about 5%. While the last increase seemed large last year, it actually was reduced significantly from $3.15 to $2.59 back in fiscal 22. And fiscal 24 it was just bringing it back to pre-pandemic levels. And like I mentioned, non-signatory as well as cargo and charter rates are 25% higher as per the agreement. Okay, now here's some of the projects that we're funding. A couple of them are the terminal improvement that's currently in the design phase and won't be in construction for a couple more years. This will be funded by the FAA grants, BFC, some debt, and airport funds. One project that we will hopefully be in construction in the next year or so is the Southfield Phase 2, Southfield Redevelopment Phase 2, that is fully funded by the airport. And Phase 1, as you know, is currently wrapping up with the addition of about 60 rental car ready return lot spaces and 3 additional remain overnight spots for airlines. Phase 2 will add some hundreds of parking spaces down to the south of the terminal, which replaces, hopefully will replace the off-site overflow lot here in Hollister. This will net over about $1 million in annual cost savings and additional revenues from elimination of the shuttle expenses. And terminal employees will no longer need to take shuttles. And we can generate additional revenues from this overflow lot in Hollister, hopefully. And here we have the map of the project showing the Phase 1 that's hopefully wrapping up soon. And right below that is where the phase 2, the additional over like 400 spaces we're adding. And that concludes my presentation, and I would be glad to take your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Abad. Commissioners, do you have any questions?
I have a question, Jonathan. Thank you. Remind me, what is the significance of signatory versus non? I mean, I know it's more, but what does an airline get for being a signatory, or is it a signatory because of some metric that?
So it's signatory due to a metric with, it's really geared towards the airlines that serve this community on a permanent basis. The metric that is in the lease is based on the number of passengers. I believe it's weekly passengers, John, do you remember? Yeah, so you have to have a certain number of weekly passengers to qualify to be a signatory airline, which gives you the reduced pricing for utilizing the airport.
Got it. And that's over some fixed period. In other words, it's not just 1 week if you scale up, it's over an extended period of time.
So I would have to look into a little bit more detail on how we do the billing.
No,
but
yeah, no need. Okay, thank you.
Thanks for that detailed presentation. We will be asked to approve these. So I was curious, you make the statement that the airlines had been consulted and they agreed to these increases. Was there any additional feedback on the increases?
The airlines were, a bit concerned. They were more comfortable with our 5.5% increase, although we haven't had any increases for a while. And they had some questions, some follow-up questions which we've answered. But I think, they're not very happy, but
I will say that Jonathan did a great job of trying to work both with our city finance team to keep our allocated costs down as much as possible. Unfortunately, they are very conservative in how they budget with deficits and other things coming online. So we see some things in the budget that are higher than we would even like them to be, that hopefully through the year we won't actually spend all of that, and that will be recovered through the reconciliation that we do at the end of the year. But we did work very cooperatively with the airlines to try to keep those increases to the smallest amount possible.
Okay, great. Well, they
and I
certainly
might also
seem to-
add to that, I'm sorry, that with the addition of the Delta Airlines, they're not actually going to see the full increase. It's going to be spread out a little bit. So it's going to be much less than the 7% that you're seeing there. So,
Well, they certainly seem in line with kind of inflation there for the most part. So, okay, thank you.
Yeah, I would agree. And I know you guys have an excellent relationship with the airlines, and so walking them through that and the understanding that those rates have been flat for a while, I think, is important. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for the detailed report.
One other question about the proposed rates. It looks like all of these are based on usage by the airline. There's no per passenger rate that's changing. Is that correct?
So the only per passenger fee that is out there is the passenger facility charge, and that is capped by the federal government currently at $4.50. There's been a push to allow that to be increased nationwide. We would have to decide whether we want to increase it or not if they do remove that cap or raise the cap, but that's still currently capped at $4.50.
Understood. Okay. So I was just trying to figure out, if we have more passengers than ever, why do we need to raise fees? But it's not that the passenger count does actually incurs more expense to the airport.
That is correct, with extra paper supplies for the restrooms and cleaning things more often because of the traffic, yes.
Okay.
One other question, I guess not directly related to the rates, but to a statement you made. In the Southfield redevelopment phase 2, there was the statement that aircraft rated pavement is going to be converted over to parking. So what's, and this maybe was covered at some long ago meeting, what is the plan to mitigate the reduction in aircraft parking spaces that will be replaced by car parking?
So I can answer that question. All of these projects were anticipated in the 2017 master plan. So we are currently going through a master plan update right now, and that takes in the demand that we have for the airport from now until 2041 and plans for the facilities to accommodate that need. And so that is all, the general aviation has shifted from the Southfield up to the northern side. So that'll be through the FBO redevelopment, as well as the area that is freed up once the FBOs are all located in one consolidated area to continue to work on smaller GA.
And that process will take place after the Southfield redevelopment, so there'll be some interim period where these aircraft don't quite have a home yet?
So honestly, we were already in that interim period. So Atlantic Aviation used to be based on the south side of the airport. They were relocated November of 2022. And so that's when that change actually occurred. From that point on, the only existing user that was displaced or would have been displaced is Surf Air, who is currently still operating out of that area, but we anticipate that that will not be a factor for them. We are temporarily using some of that area to accommodate some demand from smaller general aviation airplanes right now, but all of them have been added since we have been moving forward with those projects, and all of them have been notified that this is a temporary use until we move forward with Southfield Phase 2.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Do we have any other speaker request forms or public comment on the report? Seeing none, I will call for a motion. All in favor? Thank you.
I'll second it.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? 5-0. All right, and likely the moment we've all been waiting for. Here to talk about subject number 9, the General Western Aero Hangar Restoration Analysis Study, Environmental Review, and Proposed Public Outreach.
Thank you, Chair
Director
Glazer.
Hastert.
Thank you, Chair Glazer. I want to thank everybody for their public participation tonight. I know this is an item that a lot of people have been waiting on some resolution as to what is the status of the General Western Aero Hangars and what is the proposal of the city moving forward. I know that there's been a number of different studies which we will talk about. There's been a lot of inaction in the past, but I would ask that the public give us the benefit of the doubt that we have a new team moving forward. We have not all new commissioners, but a lot of change in commissioners. So we are dedicated to keeping this moving, regardless of what the actual outcome will be, which we will discuss in just a little bit, but we're dedicated to keep this project moving. So with that, just wanted to talk about the purpose of this item. So obviously we're going to give you a presentation on the history, some analysis that we've done on the hangars with the different options, a little bit about the environmental review, and what we are proposing as far as public outreach to attempt to actually preserve the hangars in their existing place. And then we would hope to receive comments from the commission of anything that we either don't cover or you think that we need to highlight a little bit differently in our comments to the City Council, which we will be presenting to on April 30th. Just really quickly, the team that has been working on it, we have a number of consultants that have been working on this with different reports that you find on our website and in the packet. And then you have myself, Sarah Iza, our development manager, Brad Klinzing, our supervising engineer, and Jessica Metzger, who is our airport planner. But then I also want to acknowledge the help that Public Works has provided through their special projects team as we looked at the environmental concerns for the different options that we have moving forward. They did a great job of helping us out with that. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jessica Metzger, and then I'll take it back over for the comments and questions on our recommendations.
Thank you, Director Hastert. So we just want to start out with a little bit of history on the hangars themselves. They were built in 1931, and really quickly from there in 1932, the owners of the company constructed 4 P-2 Meteor planes, and that was a plane name that they came up with for this varied pitch propeller plane. These 4 planes were increased in speed from other planes in that time frame. But unfortunately, one of the company members, who was also a test pilot, died in that same year in 1932, and so the project did not get really any more traction. And then, due to the great depression and bankruptcy, the company sold the hangars to the city of Santa Barbara in 1932. Or 3, sorry. So to go to more recent history for you, these are the reports that Chris alluded to earlier that have been done for the hangars. And before I talk about them really quick, I want to let the public know that all of these reports are on our website, and our last slide will have that website address for you. And also this PowerPoint will be posted there tomorrow. I know some of it will be hard to see for you in the back. So we started out our reporting in 2002 with Lenvik and Minor Architects preparing a prior conditions and use analysis for the 2 hangars. And unfortunately, due to budget, no action was really taken from that report. In 2014, we had a historic structure report prepared for the hangars, and that report found that they are eligible for the National Register of Historic Places and for listing as city landmarks. And then last year, in 2023, we did a conditions and further use analysis study. And this analyzed 4 options, and 2 of those options were to deconstruct one of the hangars and use the material to rehabilitate the other. In that report, we also found that the trusses in the hangars need additional support. And so it's important to keep in mind that most likely whatever happens with this, a full aircraft that would fit in there in the past would no longer fit due to the structure changes to reinforce those trusses. So now I'm going to go into the environmental review. As Chris said, these hangars were included in our 2017 Master Plan Environmental Impact Report. So in that report, it analyzed 4 different options for the hangars. One was to take no action at all. One was to mothball them and leave them in place. One, relocate, and one, document and demolish. Last year, in 2023, we looked at other options for the hangars in what's called an addendum to that master plan EIR that was done in 2017. So as I said before, one of the new options that wasn't studied in 2017 was to deconstruct one hangar and use the salvage material at the current location for the other hangar, or to deconstruct one hangar and use the material at a new location for one hangar. And so these were something that was studied last year and further increased our options for the hangars from 2017. So this is a comparison of the 2017 EIR and the analysis study and addendum that we did last year. And it's important to note that options 1 and 2 from the EIR in 2017 are no longer on the table. So we're not going to take no action, and we're not going to leave them in place. So that's not a decision that we're making, and we've determined that it's not viable at this time. And so if you look under the 2023 analysis study, these are the 4 options that we'll be reviewing with you today and with City Council on April 30th. So option 2 is the less impact for CEQA. It's an exemption, and that's to restore and reuse the hangars. And so that's the fastest process also. And then option 3 is less than significant with mitigation, the environmental impacts. And so we would have to do further study, but it would be something where we would be doing mitigation to that option. And then options 1 and 4 have the most significant impacts and would require the most time to activate if that was what happens at the end of this process, because we have to go to the Planning Commission and also to City Council to do a statement of overriding considerations, which is just another milestone in the process, basically. So the options you're reviewing today are 1, document and demolish, 2, restore in place, 3, relocate and restore, and 4, consolidate. And now I'll hand it back to Director Hastert for the end.
So the nice thing is we're not going to ask you to make that decision tonight, but really the goal of our staff recommendation and then the comments that we want to receive is to keep our options open with the goal of moving forward, potentially with reusing both hangars in place. And we'll get to some more information about that in just a second. So one of the things I wanted to bring up is one of the major hurdles for restoring the hangars, or just even dealing with the hangar subject in general, even with demolishing them, would be project funding. We don't currently have the budget available for any of these options, and these are not grant eligible projects through the FAA. I have been told of a lot of different potential interest in these hangars from nonprofit groups that I think you'll probably hear from here this evening that would be willing to raise money to have a use in those hangars, from developers that want to do other larger developments on the airport that would be willing to assist with that issue of the hangars, with potential community grants through the state or other agencies as a community project that they could get behind. So the issue that we have right now is we haven't really moved forward with any path to be able to bring back information to the commission, to the council, to make a real decision on these hangars. We don't have all of the information available. So we did look at the budget. These are obviously just engineers' estimates for the projects and for the different options. So these were revised with the 2023 study. So obviously the most expensive option would be to relocate them to a different area, because that involves restoring them and also moving them. And obviously the least expensive option, but one of the most environmentally impactful options, is the document and demolish at $393,000. So moving forward, if we really did want to try to restore both of those hangars and reuse them, we're looking at a little over $2 million. I would say likely to be a little higher than that with everything going on in our world right now with construction costs and everything else. Or the option 4 of trying to save some of the pieces from one hangar to get the other one back up and operational, about $1.6, $1.7 million. Now, this is a slide that we put in that was just a quick analysis based on our current rates. So if we were to invest airport money, which we don't have right now, but invest airport money and lease them out at our standard rates, it's actually interesting to see that option 2, restore in place, actually has the best return on the investment, which actually surprised me a little bit when I looked at it. But that's due to being able to utilize that as a facility, not just ground rent. So the one thing I would point out to this is it's good information to compare the different options and just understand what that means. But likely we're not using just airport funds to do this. It would be grant funding or other things. So that would be a much different look at the finances, including if it was, say, a nonprofit that came forward and wanted to pay to restore those hangars. It's not likely we're going to have them pay to restore the hangars and charge them the full rate to be in there. So there's a lot of other looks that would have to be done with different proposals. Our general plan currently lists different statements for sustainability. So obviously, as we look at this project and look at those historical hangars, we want to factor that into the decisions that are made from the commission and then ultimately as we go up to city council. And that's living within our resources and stressing sustainability for development. So options 2 and 3 to salvage the hangars definitely preserves our resources, and option 4 would repurpose salvaged historical materials into the one, so a little bit of that as well. So the staff recommendation is really just to forward comments on to the city council. With that, I will just say that my recommendation that we're not taking action on tonight is to keep all of our options open, with the goal of trying to save and reuse both hangars. With that, we will be seeking guidance from the city council to authorize us to begin the public process to find out what all options are out there, including funding sources potentially from grants, from the different groups that you'll probably hear from tonight, and bring those options back to the commission for discussion so that we can select which option we move forward on and a potential of who might be in those facilities. I anticipate that there's going to be a number of different options that come forward that might align very well with our goals of keeping aviation uses in those hangars. There will probably be other options that bring money to the table that aren't necessarily consistent with aviation or our master plan. There may be options that aren't even necessarily consistent with our master plan, with developers on the airport or with other groups that want to use. So it's not, I would anticipate that there's not going to be one really easy solution for this, but I think that there will be options that we have available that would ultimately result in the hangars being restored and reused. Some of the ideas that have come to mind, and we don't have to make any decisions on that tonight, would be an aviation museum or the relocation of our visitor center, which was displaced from some of those tenants that were on the south side coming up. Additionally, we have groups like the Civil Air Patrol that are looking for a permanent home, although they don't bring funding with them for that. So I think there's a lot of different opportunities out there. So the goal would be to keep our options open, try to seek public participation in funding this project to move forward, whether that be through different groups that want to participate or, like I said, community grants or otherwise. And with that, we're here to answer any questions and hear your comments that, again, we will forward to the City Council.
Thank you guys very much for the detailed report. I know this is years in the making, so thank you for pulling this all together and getting this to us tonight. Commissioners, do you have any questions?
Well, I'm glad to see that the discussion has been segregated between the merits of preserving and the costs, as it should be, and looking for other sources there. And yeah, certainly will be quite a lively ongoing discussion about this. I was a little curious about the flood wall situation, and was a little unclear on the size of that. Is that going to be a substantial wall, or is that, I think I saw 6 feet, but is that from the grade, or?
So I wish our engineer was here to answer some of these questions, but it would be something that could be incorporated into the building itself. So it wouldn't be like a flood wall surrounding a building, but more than likely it would limit the uses of the hangar inside, because we would anticipate that there would still be water that gets to that hangar.
Mm-hmm.
It would just be walls in the existing facility that are designed to be able to handle that water and not cause destruction of the facilities. But we would have to be careful not to have uses in there that potential flooding could impact.
That entire parcel is subject to flooding because of its proximity to
That
creeks,
entire parcel, so all of the airport is on a floodplain, but
Yes, but-
that specific parcel over there is within the floodway.
Yeah.
So definitely a challenging area.
Okay. And for, I believe it's building 248, the more challenged of the buildings, right? I shouldn't say decrepit. That would essentially entail creating a replica of that building. Is that?
I think it's safe to say that even if we took the parts from one into the other, there's going to be a lot of new pieces that are added to that. But I've seen very, very much similar projects with old farmhouses and other things that are relocated and turned into museums, and they come out very nice.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of relocation on the airport property or nearby, had any sites been identified for that?
So we haven't gone down that direction in much detail, and the reason why is I've had some developers that have come to say, hey, we should do something better with that area. Those hangars should be relocated, whether it be across Hollister or somewhere else on the airport or even off airport property. The one thing that I continue to remind people is that area is very difficult to develop with a new facility. It's not in our master plan or our ALP, first of all. But even if we did want to make that change, being in the floodway with anything in that area would be challenging, if not near impossible to do. So it's not really hampering our ability to do regular business decisions on the airport by having them stay in the current location.
Yeah, well, it's definitely a unique location on the airport.
If I might actually add one more thing that I forgot to mention, It's very likely that when the FBO relocation project or redevelopment project comes forward, that we will relocate airport administration out of this building. One of the prime locations that we are looking at is the large office building that is just south of where these hangars are. And so that could potentially lead for a nice campus to where we have our office buildings and a potential museum or other things that are there. One of the questions that was asked is what kind of uses could we do? And they're spelled out very well, I believe on our website as well. But as Ms. Metzger mentioned, with the additional supports that might be required for those hangars, it might limit the open space, the clear space that is available in those hangars. So if we convert it into some type of a museum or something that didn't require aircraft to go back and forth to the hangar, we could potentially even adjust our fence line to where they're outside of the fence line and more open to the public as well.
Right. Well, there certainly seem to be a lot of merits to preserving them, and looking forward to seeing it. Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to, so Jessica, thank you. 12 years on the Airport Commission in various capacities, 4 airport directors, lots of public engagement, and I don't think there has ever been a topic that everybody agrees on. Everybody agrees that we would love to preserve those things. And the only boogeyman we have to solve is funding, basically. Where are we going to get the money? And I would hope, given the community involvement and the wealth of the surrounding communities, that all the organizations that have interest and some of the people who live here that might have interest would be able to come together. Assuming that no fairy godmother is going to come along and write us a check for $2.5 million in one fell swoop, would we at the airport wind up kind of being the center for, this group wants to put in this much money and this individual wants to do this, and would we be the kind of the narrator of that process or the mediator of that process, or how would that happen?
So our goal is to do some public outreach, find out what support there is out there, and the support may vary depending on what the use is. So we may get some people that say, hey, I would love to support that if it's an aviation hangar, or I would love to support that if it can benefit my group who wants to do some activities out of that hangar.
Right.
And so we would bring all of those back together and see what could be potentially combined for support. So say it was the Civil Air Patrol that doesn't have funding, maybe there's a group that wants to help support the Civil Air Patrol and their mission. We'd bring all of those back to the commission with a staff recommendation and seek your guidance as to whether you agree with that recommendation or we should shift gears and look something different. Or worst case scenario is if there's just a lot of talk out there about wanting to save the hangars, but there's really not a lot of support for it, then we might come back with a decision to look at one of the other options that is less expensive. But my hope would be, and my thought is, that there's probably enough support out there that we would bring back several different options, and it wouldn't necessarily be an easy slam dunk decision of which one is the best one.
Right. So just to take that a little bit farther, anticipating that there's tons of interest, less than tons of groups that can come up with big chunks of money, either directly or aggregating, smaller pots, and then a few larger pots of money that might come from grants or individuals or organizations. Would we, I'm trying to envision, it would be wonderful to have one topic that we deal with that creates little to no controversy. And so I'm anticipating not so much controversy in, this group will write a check for $2 million if we do this with it, more that there's 35, dozens of different sources that come in, that many of which don't have prerequisites, just saying, hey, I want to do this. And so who would administrate that?
So the airport will definitely be involved in that process, and we will be doing a lot of public outreach in developing what that process will be over the next few weeks, if that's the direction that council and the commission wants to go. I would hope that there are a whole bunch of different people that would be willing to contribute, hopefully a lot with no strings attached, but ultimately until we start to put that together, we won't exactly know how that's going. I will say that our goal would be if we see different opportunities that could move forward that meet our master plan, meet the allowed uses, and support aviation, that would obviously be the priority. And hopefully we could put some of those people together to make a project happen. But if not, then we would bring back whatever we have for future discussion.
Got it. Okay, thanks, Chris.
I'm curious, is it a possibility for the city as an organization to create some sort of a nonprofit foundation for preserving and restoring the hangars? Is that something the city can do?
So those are all questions I'm looking into right now, but I know the city does have the ability to take on donations. That we do things like that with the library and other things. The mechanism, I'm not exactly certain on yet, but it's something that I don't think, it's a challenge that I think we could easily figure out.
Okay, thank you.
If we moved the hangars, would it be a process like they did Hangar 5, and how much of the hangar could we keep if we moved it? Like,
So if the hangars were relocated, it would be a process very similar to Hangar 5. How much you can keep and reuse would probably come down to where it's being moved to and the specifics with the contract that is being put out there. I don't know the condition of, say, every beam and things like that, but the goal would be to preserve as much of it as possible if that were the case. As it would be if we reuse it in the existing place, the goal would be to reuse as much as possible.
and the structure, like the bones of the hangar, are those pretty in good shape, or we don't
So
know?
unfortunately, no, and that's where we mentioned earlier that the trusses need some additional structural support. So the trusses go across the clear span of the hangars right now. It's likely they will have to have some kind of support in the center to keep them sturdy, which limits the clear space for being able to have a large airplane or something inside of there.
Right, okay, thank you.
One thing I neglected to mention, which this is pretty far down the road, but if an aviation museum or some sort of historical thing regarding the development of aviation in Santa Barbara and the surrounding area, we've lost a number of older folks who were around early, and one of those was Tom Smotherman, who I'm sure many people out there know. And if we get to that, Tom has oodles, as I'm sure other people do, oodles of historical pictures, documents, airplane parts, et cetera, that, I can't help be thinking that, he would have been here, obviously supporting this, but a way that we can honor all of that history that he has kept is if we wind up doing something with that along those lines, that would be a great home for a good deal of that stuff.
So most definitely, in the picture that we have in the back right here was actually donated by him to our airport building here. And along with that, we have 2 buildings over there, and if we are successful in restoring both buildings, it doesn't necessarily mean that there can't be 2 different uses over there as well.
Maya.
Has the airport or the city ever earmarked any funds for this in the past, and how much do you think would be a ballpark that the city or the airport might consider contributing to it?
So we've had some discussion about it. I don't know, Jonathan, if you know if it has ever been budgeted in the past, not to my knowledge.
There was some budget to
So, without committing what we have in our budget or other things, at a minimum, we would have to document and demolish. And so I would feel comfortable stating that at a minimum, we would have at least that much involved if we aren't able to raise additional funds.
Thanks.
That sounds like 10% of what we need right there.
We're just getting
I feel like we should pass a hat.
As we've looked at the different options, I just want to make clear, we've passed a lot of master plan and looked at that thoroughly. As I read through these documents, it seems like option number 2, which would be to restore in place, would not have to alter any of the master plan agreements that we've already gone through or any of the FBO redevelopment, correct?
Yeah, that is correct, and is exempt from the CEQA element as well, so it could move forward fairly quickly.
And as an investment nerd, it looks like that's a net present value to a positive too. So, okay, thank you. Any other comments, commissioners? Right. At this time, I'd like to open it up to speakers. We have quite a few speaker request forms here tonight. I would just again reiterate that please keep it to the allotted time that Mo's going to keep on there for us. I'd like to hear everyone, like to hear your opinions and your thoughts, because this is important to all of us. So I'd like to call up Robin Cederloff.
Good evening. Robin Cederloff. I'm a resident of the Goleta area. My dad essentially grew up on this airport. Didn't live too far. I've enjoyed coming over here when he was a young child, and eventually got his own private pilot's license and flew quite a bit up until a couple months before he died, basically, out of this airport. Was involved with Liga and a number of the other flying missionary type groups that would go to Mexico and help. I have a fondness for these hangars. He actually was allowed to keep his plane in one of those hangars for a while. And I understand this has been a long, long process. I really would support option 2, not only with my heart, but with my wallet. And I really hope that you find a way to convince the city to finally get something done with these hangars. Funding, I don't think, is an issue. There's a lot of money in this community. There's a lot of money in the United States, basically, to save our aeronautical history. I don't think there would be any problem finding this necessary funds to get this off the ground. Definitely would support a museum, and a museum could have multiple functions. It could be operating even as an event facility at times. If any of you have ever been over to Palm Springs Airport, they do a fabulous job with their exhibits and being able to multi-use the facilities. Flood zone, as we've all grown up in Goleta, we're just used to flooding. And when flooding happens, you just close the doors and don't let people come in. Those hangars, funds could be raised to elevate the foundations, get them off the ground a little bit higher so that the contents inside and the buildings themselves would also be protected. And I love the idea of a public-private collaboration to manage and raise funds for this project. So I truly, truly support option 2. Thank you.
Thank you. Call up Fermina Murray.
Goodness, I thought I was going to be the last one. Okay. I second that motion. Option 2, for sure. Fermina Murray, local historian. I'm a former member of the Landmarks Commission, Santa Barbara Landmarks Commission. I served there for 12 years. Very familiar with these historic buildings. So, as you know, all of the studies have been done over the last 20 years. They all have determined that these 2 buildings are eligible to be registered in the National Register of Historic Places, California Register, local landmarks. They are probably the only 2 buildings left in the United States that are intact and they're in their original location. We are probably the only airport that have these kind of buildings. Most airports have lost their buildings or relocated to other areas. So this is really important. Option 2 is also, it's exempt from CEQA. It means that's the only option that you can use to rally the public funding support, not those other 3 options. You're going to have to pay for those 3 options if you do it, and they're more expensive. So why choose those? Choose option 2. As Robin said, many citizens want to preserve these buildings, and they will come forward if you have a plan to, number 1, preserve them, and then open it up to all the different options that were so eloquently numbered. I just want to mention this flooding issue keeps coming up. And I just want to say that these hangars are standing there. They've been survived all these years, everyone has mentioned, we are in the floodplain. We know how to do that. These are simple buildings. They can be restored to protect them from flooding. Also, this is the Chumash land. We know it was a slough. It's always floods. I also want to say that for the public record, it really must be acknowledged that the city and the airport department, they are the owners of these hangars. We are in violation of the city ordinance. The city ordinance of Santa Barbara says that if we neglect our historic resources, we are basically doing demolition by neglect. We want to stop that. Option 2 will rectify that once and for all. The City Council expressed support for preserving historic hangars in their June 22 meeting, when it authorized this latest funding. $55,000 was for this analysis that you are reviewing before you. The council was interested in seeking alternative funding sources for restoration and adaptive reuse of the buildings. So I join all the concerned citizens and to strongly request that this commission adopt option 2, restore and reuse, as your top recommendation to the City Council on their Tuesday meeting on April 30th. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Murray. All right, can we have Claire Grow come up?
Hi, thank you. I'm Claire Giroux. Thank you so much for inviting the public to comment on this really important topic tonight. I don't have much to add other than what I'm sure is going to be said. I don't know much about the history of the airport hangars in Goleta. That being said, I grew up here. I grew up off of Turnpike, and I think it's kind of a shame that I don't know much about our aerospace history or our aviation history. I think it's really important for all of us to be proud of the things that have contributed and made this city what it is today. There's a lot of stories and really compelling ones that can be told. I write grants, and there's currently $27 million in the California Cultural Heritage Endowment that is just sitting there waiting for opportunities like this to be advocated for. I would strongly encourage you to look at state, at federal funding, as well as public, private, and organizational funding. It's definitely there. $2 million is not a hard target for something like this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Dario Margaretti.
Hi, I'm Dario Margheriti. I'm from Italy, and I dear and love sports, and I would love to transform those two places in a sports center. I have a way to help you guys out to connect with the people that can actually build it in quick, leveling it, and establishing it. If it is ever going to have to be put it down, we can make it something different too, create a dome. But it doesn't seem like we want to do that. I want number 2, and it's feeding. I coach 2-year-olds and up. This is one of my flyers. I own a league in town also. There is a Santa Barbara futsal. It's for 5v5, perfect for that environment space. It's going to teach them 9 times more touches into soccer players, and it's going to integrate them to level up our Santa Barbara USB players for later on. I would love to transform that into a sport, and also other event night. I'm very visionary. Come from a town of built ancient, and I came from a dream of coming over here. I worked 16 years in also in hospitality business, so I'm very common to know what people needs and what their distress is about. We don't have enough park. We don't have enough park that is protected by the rain. We need more place to play for kids. We need more place to play for adults. Nights events also have implementing for the USCSB that I can help before 21 age. That we do need help. And there's many other ways that we can also help the community. I used to run a free soccer lesson up in Santa Cruz when I moved here for COVID, for helping parents that was in need, that they were having health problems, so I came closer. I'm restarting my businesses here. I own 3 businesses, 2 businesses actually, one under has the same one. One is soccer, one is swimming. I teach 4 months and up for swimming, 2-year-olds and up for soccer. And I want to develop a more community through sports, psychological breakdown through sports. I always say it doesn't matter when you start, it's when you catch up in life. You know, everybody's a unbroken dream, and we all have to believe in something. I have a dream. I come from a very old town, work with my dad as an artisan, famous artist, as Steve Poor, but I have a dream. I worked in the 16 Chapel, most of you go view it, Lexus and Peter Square I grew up, and I restored with a lot of stuff, working constructions to roof. I'm an elevator implanter, electricians, I have many degrees in my life. I would love to help this community, not to put it down. It's quick to make money through sport. They're making in 8 weeks, everybody in town from 6 to 300,000. No matter the program, recreational. We can fix that. I would love it. I would love to leave a card. I don't know who it's gonna be, and I'm gonna already talk to Angie. That's in since 2022 that I'm trying this. I would love to work with you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We have Kevin Harborough.
Hi, I'm Kevin Haberly. I'm the founder and president of a local nonprofit called the Community Hot Rod Project. We have a few of our members here tonight that are between an engineering team, archaeologists, and stuff like that. But we're an all-age program to teach vocational trades using cars as a tool. And there's a lot of local history that with the airport and these hangars that aren't aviation-based, that a lot of people don't know about. It's actually the first, the right outside here is the very first sanctioned drag race location in the United States. There's also the Santa Barbara road races that used to be here. So our nonprofit is asking the commission and stuff to have the opportunity to pay for and restore the hangars. Both of them, use one as our workshop space for our vocational program, and do the other as an aviation and automobile museum with all the rotating history and memorabilia of what our members have within the community. And it's an incredible opportunity to be able to bring this back into the Santa Barbara area and just give back to the public. We'd love to be able to raise the whole property. We've had our own engineering team look at it, raise the property to get it out of the floodplains. We've looked into what the actual cost would be to do that, and actually met with the director last year. We spoke a little bit about our ideas, and it'd be a great opportunity to give back to the community and work together and give our nonprofit a home to work out of and train the youth of the community and get everybody to get together for fun events and stuff like that. So I really encourage everybody to come together and let's work as a team and do this for the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments and coming with solutions. We appreciate that. Thank you. Perry Lebec.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. I'm so impressed with what's going on. I'm Tom Smotherman's sister, so since he can't be here, I'm here for him, his heart. Also willing to put in a donation for this piece of property to be preserved. And as the young man just mentioned, there were car races, there were drag races, there were all kinds of things happening. Another thing that Tom was starting to really dig his teeth into was the Marine base that was here. It was really close to his heart. Another thing he loves, which is another young man spoke about, training children. He wanted children to learn how to fly. He wanted to inspire children to fly. He loved aviation so much. I thought he loved it from the age of 16. when he first went up in a plane with me and my boyfriend who worked for Aztec Aircraft at the time. Instead, another friend of his told me that he talked to him about having one of the first airplanes on the wires that you spun around in the yard. And he looked at that plane in the sky and dreamed of himself being up there. And that's when he fell in love with aviation. He has not stopped a day. He went into the Air Force. He worked into avionics and became a master at it. From what I'm told by other people, I didn't know he was quite a master, but I'm told he was. So these hangars are so important to him. And as was said earlier, I don't even know your name. Craig. I have boxes. I've got Jack Conroy boxes that are going to his daughter. And then I've got historical boxes, historical photos, historical things, scrapbooks filled with things, just bits of memorabilia, all given to you guys as soon as you are ready, as soon as there's a safe place for them. I'm not giving them to anyone until there's a safe place. He saved this stuff from down in Oxnard area, who was supposed to be in a museum back down there, and they were throwing them in the trash. Someone called him at the last minute, and he rushed down. So he's been saving this. His whole life has been to do the historical backup for Santa Barbara Aviation, the races, and the World War II, I'm sorry, Marine base. So I please save these historical places, have them be a museum. Parts can be for children to learn, auto mechanics, flying airplanes. Get Dos Pueblos and San Marcos to have, send some kids over who want to learn how to fly. That would be a really good part. That could be part of an income as well, teaching children. So anyway, I know I'm rambling because everything has already been said. That's so wonderful. And I just wanted to let everybody know the passion that he had. And I have the passion in boxes at home and in my heart. And I'll be speaking for him from now on. Thank you all.
Perry, thank you for being here. Thank you for speaking, and thank you for carrying on his legacy. We appreciate that. Bo Lawrence.
Thanks, everyone. Good evening. My name is Bo Lawrence. I am a local business owner and a proud tenant in one of the 1940s Army barracks, UCSB side of the control tower on the runway, close to the runway. Definitely have learned a lot about the flooding around here, but love this place very much. It's been a really inspiring place to build the business. We've got a retail store in downtown Santa Barbara and run some of our manufacturing and fulfillment out of our facility here. And coming out here with a brand that's built and inspired around aviation has been such a pleasure to be here present on the property and to really dig into the history of this amazing place. Almost 69 years ago now, actually next month, the Santa Barbara Airport was the last place that James Dean raced. And between that and the 1953 film Johnny Dark, clearly automotive history has played such an important role on this property. And maybe more so than some other places with such spectacular history that's important to share also with regard to automotive history around Santa Barbara County. And we all understand how much love there is for that lane in this space. And I think especially in consideration of some of the pressures created from the building and reinforcement that potentially won't be able to house planes, cars that could be there, thinking about what Kevin is proposing with Community Hot Rod Project and deepening education, deepening local history experience, supported by lots more incredible, generous folks in town who want to see automotive history carried on, is really important to think about. There's so much amazing stuff that can be done here, but automotive history is such an important part of the airport, and it's such a wonderful story to tell, especially if you've got James Dean Spider parked in the hangar and whatnot. It could be a really incredible thing. So I support option 2, and I hope that all this happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Bo. Richard Clausen.
Good evening. I'm Rick Clausen. And I'm not a Galetan. I'm a Santa Barbaran. But through the magic of gerrymandering, I'm in City District 5, just like this airport. Shout out to my council member there in the back. I think it's very important to put every effort into saving a set of structures, a pair of structures like this. Santa Barbara has a lot of historic structures, but I would bet money that this is as unique as they come. Every historic structure says it's unique, and it probably is in its own way. But we don't have anything like this at all. And so, no, I'm not quite done. I do want to tell you a little story. 6 or 7 or 8 years ago, I was working with a woman who did garage sales for charities. Half a block down from where she held these, there was a small cottage that had been sold. The owners had moved on, and a carpenter, a single guy jobber, was going to rehab this and make it a new property. But in the house and in the crawl space under the house were things. There was stuff left over from the people that moved out. And he said to the organizer that I worked with, your people can have all of this stuff. Just come and take it out. It'll just save me the cost of pulling it out. And we did, and it was a gold mine. But I'm one of those people that cannot see ephemera just evaporate. And so there were boxes of papers, and I thought, okay, I got to take these. I don't know what's in there. Well, it turned out that they were the papers of Virginia Gadsby Ogden, who was an early aviatrix. She lived in the Seattle area, and it was her high school memorabilia. And as she progressed through aviation school, and she was an early flyer, she was a woman flyer. They didn't have very many of those then. I was interested in giving this material to somebody that cared. And I contacted the Museum of Flight in Seattle. They were very interested because they had very little on women aviators. She's not a local for us, but she is a linchpin in that whole thread of early aviation. And this is just the sort of stuff, just the sort of blank spot that these buildings in Santa Barbara and Goleta could fill. Please do, save it.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other speakers? Mo, do you have any more speaker slips? Anyone else? Commissioners, do you have any other questions or comments?
All right. I knew Tom personally. Tom is a one-man museum of stuff. I appreciate that you're keeping all of that and that we will find a home for it.
Levi?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank everyone for turning out, for sharing your ideas. It seems like there's definitely a thirst and a desire to see something done. I think under Mr. Hastert's leadership, we will see something done. A question for you, Mr. Hastert. What can we do next as far as moving something along? Do we put out a request for proposal? How do we keep this project on track and keep this excitement going so that we don't have, I mean, I think we were lucky in the fact that no action was taken in the past, because one of those actions might have been the destruction of the hangars. So by kicking this can down the road, we can maybe perhaps take solace in knowing that at least a detrimental action wasn't taken in the past. We're in a position now to do something. How do we keep the momentum?
So the next step is obviously going to the city council April 30th. If there's similar sentiment at the council, which I hope there would be, then it's back to staff again to start putting together a process for that public outreach. And I can commit to you that if that's the direction that everything heads, that we will not let that go.
Perfect.
If I may, Director Hastert, we also have what we are calling an interested parties list on that website, where you can sign up and get notifications of every next step in this process via email. So please go and sign up, or if you spoke today on the public comment slips, we'll add you to that list. Thank you.
I'd just like to comment on Commissioner Maya's comments as well. I first toured these hangars in 2001, and I can guarantee you one thing: they were not in better shape today than they were then. They're needing some love, and so speed is certainly of the essence. And now we have the reports, and it would be great, if we could move this forward. In my opinion, excited to see it. My grandfather was a Corsair pilot that flew in and out of here, and I'm sure he parked either in front of them or in them. So I'd sure love to keep that moving along. Commissioners, any other comments? Don't believe we need a motion to move this forward, correct? So I think you have direction and public support and the commission's support to move this along to City Council.
Thank you.
And with that, we are adjourned. Was it 7:38?